The curse of the pharaohs or the mummy's curse is a curse alleged to be cast upon anyone who disturbs the mummy of an ancient Egyptian, especially a pharaoh. This curse, which does not differentiate between thieves and archaeologists, is claimed to cause bad luck, illness, or death. Since the mid-20th century, many authors and documentaries have argued that the curse is real in the sense of having scientifically explicable causes such as bacteria or radiation. However, the modern origins of Egyptian mummy curse tales, their development primarily in European cultures, the shift from magic to science to explain curses, and their changing uses, from condemning disturbance of the dead to entertaining horror film audiences, suggest that Egyptian curses are primarily a cultural, not scientific, phenomenon. There are occasional instances of genuine ancient curses appearing inside or on the facade of a tomb, as in the case of the mastaba of Keneka-Ikki of the 6th dynasty at Saqqara. These appear to be directed towards the Ka priests to protect the tomb carefully, and preserve its ritual purity rather than as a warning for potential robbers. There had been stories of curses going back to the 19th century, but they multiplied after Howard Carter's discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun. Despite popular misconceptions, no curse was found inscribed in the pharaoh's tomb. The evidence for curses relating to Tutankhamun is considered to be so meager that Donald B. Redford called it unadulterated claptrap. Curses relating to tombs are extremely rare, possibly because the idea of such desecration was unthinkable, and even dangerous to record. They most frequently occur in private tombs of the Old Kingdom era. The tomb of Ankh-Tifi, 910th dynasty, contains the warning, "Any ruler who shall do evil or wickedness to this coffin may Haman, a local deity, not accept any goods he offers, and may his heir not inherit." The tomb of Keneka-Ikki, 6th dynasty, contains an inscription, "As for all men who shall enter this my tomb, impure, there will be judgment. An end shall be made for him. I shall seize his neck like a bird. I shall cast the fear of myself into him." Curses after the Old Kingdom era are less common though more severe, sometimes invoking the ire of Thoth or the destruction of Sekhmet. Zahi Hawass quotes an example of a curse, "Cursed be those who disturb the rest of a pharaoh. They that shall break the seal of this tomb shall meet death by a disease that no doctor can diagnose." Hieroglyphs were not deciphered until the early 19th century, so reports of curses before this are simply perceived bad luck associated with the handling of mummies and other artifacts from tombs. In 1699, Louis Panetta wrote an account in which he recorded how a Polish traveler bought 2 mummies in Alexandria, and embarked on a sea journey with the mummies in the cargo hold. The traveler was alarmed by recurring visions of 2 specters, and the stormy seas did not abate until the mummies were thrown overboard. Zahi Hawass recalled that as a young archaeologist excavating at Qam Abu Billo he had to transport several artifacts from the Greco-Roman site. His cousin died on that day, his uncle died on its 1st anniversary, and on the 3rd anniversary, his aunt died. Years later, when he excavated the tombs of the builders of the pyramids at Giza, he encountered the curse, "All people who enter this tomb who will make evil against this tomb, and destroy it, may the crocodile be against them in water, and snakes against them on land. May the hippopotamus be against them in water, the scorpion on land." Though not superstitious, Hawass decided not to disturb the mummies. However, he later was involved in the removal of 2 child mummies from Bahri Oasis to a museum, and reported he was haunted by the children in his dreams. The phenomena did not stop until the mummy of the father was reunited with the children in the museum. He concluded that mummies should not be displayed, though it was a lesser evil than allowing the general public into the tombs. Hawass also recorded an incident of a sick young boy who loved ancient Egypt, and was subject to a miracle cure in the Egyptian museum when he looked into the eyes of the mummy of King Ahmose I. The idea of a mummy reviving from the dead, an essential element of many mummy curse tales, was developed in The Mummy, or A Tale of the 22nd Century, an early work combining science fiction and horror, written by Jane C. Loudon, and published anonymously in 1827. Louisa May Alcott was thought by Dominic Montserrat to have been the first to use a fully formed mummy curse plot in her 1869 story Lost in a Pyramid, or The Mummy's Curse, a hitherto forgotten piece of mummy fiction that he rediscovered in the late 1990s. However, 2 stories subsequently discovered by S. J. Wolfe, Robert Singerman, and Jasmine Day, The Mummy's Soul, Anonymous, 1862, and After 3,000 Years, Jane G. Austen, 1868, have similar plots, in which a female mummy takes magical revenge upon her male desecrator. Jasmine Day, therefore, argues that the modern European concept of curses is based upon an analogy between desecration of tombs and rape, interpreting early curse fiction as proto-feminist narratives authored by women. The anonymous and Austen stories predate Alcott's piece, raising the possibility that even earlier lost mummy curse prototype fiction awaits rediscovery. The belief in a curse was brought to many people's attention due to the deaths of a few members of Howard Carter's team, and other prominent visitors to the tomb shortly thereafter. Carter's team opened the tomb of Tutankhamun, KV62, in 1922, launching the modern era of Egyptology. The famous Egyptologist James Henry Breasted worked with Carter soon after the first opening of the tomb. He reported how Carter sent a messenger on an errand to his house. On approaching his home, the messenger thought he heard a faint, almost human cry. Upon reaching the entrance, he saw the birdcage occupied by a cobra, the symbol of the Egyptian monarchy. Carter's canary had died in its mouth, and this fueled local rumors of a curse. Arthur Weigel, a previous Inspector General of Antiquities to the Egyptian government, reported that this was interpreted as Carter's house being broken into by the royal cobra, the same as that worn on the king's head to strike enemies, Sirius, on the very day the king's tomb was being broken into. An account of the incident was reported by the New York Times on December 22, 1922. The first of the deaths was that of Lord Carnarvon, who financed the excavation. He had been bitten by a mosquito, and later slashed the bite accidentally while shaving. It became infected, and that resulted in blood poisoning. 2 weeks before Carnarvon died, Marie Corelli wrote an imaginative letter that was published in the New York World magazine, in which she quoted an obscure book that confidently asserted that dire punishment would follow any intrusion into a sealed tomb. A media frenzy followed, with reports that a curse had been found in the king's tomb, though this was untrue. The superstitious Benito Mussolini, who had once accepted an Egyptian mummy as a gift, ordered its immediate removal from the Palazzo Chigi. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, and spiritualist, suggested that Lord Carnarvon's death had been caused by elementals created by Tutankhamun's priests to guard the royal tomb, and this further fueled the media interest. Arthur Weigel reported that 6 weeks before Carnarvon's death, he had watched the Earl laughing and joking as he entered the king's tomb, and said to a nearby reporter, H.V. Morton, "I give him 6 weeks to live." The first autopsy carried out on the body of Tutankhamun by Drive Derry found a healed lesion on the left cheek, but as Carnarvon had been buried 6 months previously, it was not possible to determine if the location of the wound on the king corresponded with the fatal mosquito bite on Carnarvon. A study of documents and scholarly sources led The Lancet to conclude it unlikely that Carnarvon's death had anything to do with Tutankhamun's tomb, refuting another theory that exposure to toxic fungi, mycotoxins, had contributed to his demise. The report points out that the Earl was only one of many to enter the tomb, on several occasions, and that none of the others were affected. The cause of Carnarvon's death was reported as pneumonia supervening on facial erysipelas, a streptococcal infection of the skin, and underlying soft tissue. Pneumonia was thought to be only one of various complications, arising from the progressively invasive infection, that eventually resulted in multi-organ failure. The Earl had been prone to frequent and severe lung infections according to The Lancet, and there had been a general belief that one acute attack of bronchitis could have killed him. In such a debilitated state, the Earl's immune system was easily overwhelmed by erysipelas. In 1925, the anthropologist Henry Field, accompanied by Breasted, visited the tomb, and recalled the kindness and friendliness of Carter. He also reported how a paperweight given to Carter's friend Sir Bruce Ingram was composed of a mummified hand with its wrist adorned with a scarab bracelet marked with, "Cursed be he who moves my body. To him shall come fire, water, and pestilence." Soon after receiving the gift, Ingram's house burned down, followed by a flood when it was rebuilt. Howard Carter was entirely skeptical of such curses, dismissing them as Tommy rot, and commenting that the sentiment of the Egyptologist is not one of fear, but of respect and awe, entirely opposed to foolish superstitions. In May 1926 he reported in his diary a sighting of a jackal of the same type as Anubis, the guardian of the dead, for the first time in over 35 years of working in the desert, although he did not attribute this to supernatural causes. Skeptics have pointed out that many others who visited the tomb or helped to discover it lived long and healthy lives. A study showed that of the 58 people who were present when the tomb and sarcophagus were opened, only 8 died within a dozen years. All the others were still alive, including Howard Carter, who died of lymphoma in 1939 at the age of 64, The last survivors included Lady Evelyn Herbert, Lord Carnarvon's daughter, who was among the first people to enter the tomb after its discovery in November 1922, who lived for a further 57 years, and died in 1980, and American archaeologist J.O. Kinnaman, who died in 1961, 39 years after the event. The tomb was opened on November 29, 1922. George Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon, financial backer of the excavation, who was present at the tomb's opening, died on April 5, 1923 after a mosquito bite became infected. He died 4 months, and 7 days after the opening of the tomb. George J. Gouldie, a visitor to the tomb, died in the French Riviera on May 16, 1923 after he developed a fever following his visit. A. C. Mace, a member of Carter's excavation team, died in April 1928, having suffered from pleurisy and pneumonia in his final years. Captain the Honorable Richard Bethel, Carter's secretary, died on November 15, 1929, died in bed in a Mayfair club, the victim of a suspected smothering. Howard Carter opened the tomb on February 16, 1923, and died well over 16 years later on March 2, 1939. However, some have still attributed his death to the curse.